Everyone has AI, but nobody really understands what they're talking about.
We all can't know everything.
You've already made all the mistakes.
Where do you think that comes from?
A mix of analysis paralysis with psychological safety.
I'm waiting for the answer.
If you're seen to be coming in and solving the problem for everyone, being the hero, that's not helpful.
Okay, I think I'm missing something.
If you hire the wrong person, they have a toxic personality and you allow them to stay, then that's on you.
So it's not about cookie cutting.
You forget the power of your words as a founder and your actions.
Actually, no, you've got a problem.
Without empowerment, all you have is someone that's going to get blamed at the end of the day.
I'm Shona Grundy, founder and host of These Three Things, a podcast aimed at building a thriving and more inclusive startup ecosystem through sharing real lessons from people doing the hard work. We focus on the three strategically critical aspects of the startup journey: raising capital, finding product market fit, and expanding offshore. If you find this useful, please subscribe and recommend the podcast to at least 3 other people. We appreciate you lending us your ears and joining us for this episode. Today's special guests are Andrea Saez and Dave Martin, and through them we are diving deep into the core of the product function within startups. We'll explore just how crucial this function is in enhancing customer value and achieving and sustaining product market fit. Andrea, with more than a decade of experience in the field, is a pioneer in the realm of product marketing. She's worked closely with ambitious startups and scale-ups such as Prodpad, Airfocus, and Trent, making a significant impact through her strategic acumen, positioning expertise, and cross-team collaboration. Dave, on the other hand, is a seasoned executive coach with over 2 decades of experience in the world of product development and leadership. Through his career, he's led groundbreaking product developments, taking them from zero to millions in annual recurring revenue. He's also navigated the intricate landscape of scaling high-growth products and played a pivotal role in mergers and acquisitions, all while supporting multiple successful SaaS exits. While both are masters in their craft, they are also authors of a #1 selling book, The Product Momentum Gap, which is a bestseller across 4 distinct categories. Dave and Andrea, thank you for joining us on These Three Things.
Thanks for having us.
You're both up in London, so thank you for taking the time tonight to have this chat. I really appreciate it. I'm really curious as to how you both met and then, the genesis of the book and where this came from.
Dave approached me one day. We kind of knew each other through mutual friends, and he said, "Hey, do you want to, help me out, write some stuff?" And as we were writing, I kind of noticed that, there was a very cohesive theme of things we were writing about. And I very randomly, without any expectations, said one day, "Hey, I think we have a book." And Dave said, "Great, let's go write it." So it was kind of out of the blue, and it just materialized into this book that we've just released.
Usually we try and do things because there's a problem we're trying to overcome. What was the momentum, if I'm going to use that term from you, what was the momentum behind the problem you were trying to solve by writing this book?
I think really when Andrea came to me and suggested the book idea, she didn't know that at that point, 3 years before, I'd thought about writing a book, and I'd done it as a sort of pilot, sort of a test, a beta test, done a presentation at Mind the Product up in Manchester and at a conference, and said to the room, this is a talk on the book I want to write, and at the end, should I write it? The talk went phenomenally well. There ended up with people sitting in the aisles. It was incredibly popular, and they all told me to write the book. But then, life got in the way, and I never did. So Andrea being able to come and suggest that and that inertia and really possibly make it happen was super exciting. And the problem is very much when we see companies scale and grow and continue to grow, how they mismanage and misunderstand product market fit to the extent that it results in a lot of wasted development, a lot of wasted opportunity, a heap of wasted money and effort, and blood, sweat, and tears from teams. And worst of all, they fail to support their users, make their users' lives better as the potential they have. So that seemed good enough reason to write a book to me, to help the product teams around the world and organizations and leadership avoid these mistakes. And make better use of their capital and drive better, faster growth.
So that actually leads me perfectly on to, I had a question around why is product market fit so important? Is there anything else you wanted to add to that question before we move in? Because there's that new term. I feel like it's a new term. It's only maybe I've heard it being talked about a lot in the last year or so, but it's not new. It's just got a new terminology. So, why do you think it's so important and what does it mean to you?
Well, product market fit, I don't think is new. It's been around for a while. In order for you to sell a product successfully, there has to be a fit in the market. That's essentially what it means. But I think the misunderstanding that a lot of companies have is you either have it or you don't. And once you do, then you're set, right? You're set for life. You're done. And it's not like that. It's not a binary thing. It's not a yes or no. You can have it, you can lose it. It can be strong, it can be weak. And that can happen, throughout the existence of the company. It's not a binary yes or no thing. And in order to keep that strong product market fit, companies need to do a lot of discovery, a lot of research, constantly, be driving innovation in terms of what is valuable to the customer. And that's part of what the book talks about. And it focuses a lot around user behaviors. So understanding what those user behaviors are in order to provide real value.
I first heard the phrase product market fit from Dan Olson's book, The Lean Playbook, which is at least a decade old now. And he expresses it really well, that there's a problem space and a solution space. And product market fit is when the two align correctly, where the solution space is serving the problem space. The reality is that we attempt to drive business goals without having that alignment between the two. And that results in, suboptimal performance and lower ROI and wasted effort.
I really like how you raised that it's not a binary thing and it's not, I have it, now I've got it for good. Often I'll talk to companies and they'll go, I have product market fit. And I'll ask them how they know. And I'm not sure there's some really clear understanding of how they know that they've got it or how they know if it's breaking. Could you talk us around some examples of what happens to a business if they start losing product market fit, and how can you tell and where the dysfunction comes from?
I think that's a really interesting question. And it's true. A lot of companies might say, oh, we have it because, we have low churn, and that's great, but that's just one number. Product market fit is, in a sense, difficult to measure, quote unquote, because there is no one single measurement that can tell you, yes, you have it or yes, you don't. It's a collection of things. It could be MRR, ARR, conversion rates, adoption rates. There's so much that goes into it that I don't think it's as simple as saying, we have this one metric that will tell us. A lot of people like to use NPS. I personally hate NPS. I have a very distinct rage against it. But all of that to say, it's a collection of things that you're looking at. And once you see things slipping from where you were before, that is, I think, an indication. So you might have had really strong, conversion rates at the beginning, and you're thinking, great, product market fits right there. But then when things start slipping, that's when you start going, oh, something's going on here. And that's where the attention really should be in understanding why these metrics are slipping. Dave, I don't know if there's anything you want to add to that.
No, I agree with everything. I mean, measuring it is tough. I think there's plenty of proxies to help you measure it, whether whether NPS is one of them. I'm not a fan either. Or whether it's Sean Ellis's test. That's an interesting one. There's a number. I think the reality is, when you have got it. When you're talking to a market, a segment, a nice niche, a group of people with the same problem, that's how I define the niche, and you're offering your solution to them, however, whether it's through freemium products and PLG or whether it's sales-led sales, whether it's sales-led appointments, etc. Same, it doesn't really matter. You'll know when you've got it because that group of people will respond and will want your solution, and there'll be a demand. And as soon as the demand gets slower or less, you're losing it. And the reality is I hate the phrase, I can't believe I just said losing it. I'm talking about it binary, and how that happened in this conversation. I don't ever do that. It's not binary. It's stronger or weaker. And I think the key here is normally we've had a pretty strong market fit to get the business growing when we're a startup. We've got a narrow niche. We might not know we're in a narrow niche, but the people that are buying our product normally are. They have a very similar problem, and we're getting traction, and we think things are going really well. It's only when that something changes, either the product changes or the market changes. And often the first thing that changes is the market. We start, not that nothing actually changes in our niche, but we as a business start talking to a broader market, a slightly wider, an extra segment. When maybe we sell to retail and most of our customers happen to be coffee shops, and now we're talking to grocery stores. Well, grocery stores have a different problem to nuanced, but it's enough to weaken that market fit. And as soon as that happens, without us knowing it and being aware of it and considering it, which is where the product discovery comes in. I mean, the best way to know product market fit is to understand the customer's needs very, very well and know whether you solve them. And that's what product discovery does, and constant learning with a continuous learning and continuous discovery. As soon as you go slightly broader, things are going to go wrong. So the early signs are sales cycles have suddenly got longer. Churn is going up a little more. Deal size is starting to drop. All those key lag business metrics are starting to look a little unhealthy. And that's the real problem, because they're lag, which means you've already made all the mistakes. You've already started down the wrong road. And if you don't recognize it and correct it, you're going to get past the point of no return, where it's extremely hard to get back onto a high growth trajectory and correct this, get yourself out of the product momentum gap.
When I play back what you've just said to me, you're talking about the importance of data being visible within your business constantly. Is that correct? Like I saw you mention churn, conversion time, so that's the sales cycle, your billing, all those sort of factors. That's obviously an important factor for you as a product team. Is that correct? To have those visible all the time?
Yeah, those things are very important to be visible all the time. They're not the most important things. The more important things are more leading metrics that are less laggy, so we can be making faster decisions. So the more important things is that the metrics we're measuring of user adoption of what they're doing. When we've just sold that new deal to somebody slightly outside of our normal core. Are they using it? Are they adopting it? What's happening? Those metrics we can see much faster, and we can spot and understand the problems. And that's part and parcel with the evidence we should be gaining and the learning we should be sharing internally that drives product discovery.
You've had this concept in the book called the value creation plan. Can you explain this concept to us a little bit further?
I'll take it to that. Sure. So the product value creation plan is a framework that we've developed and we talk about. And really the main goal of it is to align the organization and bring, that product strategy together in a way where we're focusing around user behaviors. User behaviors are important because as you're developing repeatable behaviors that are valuable to the user, that essentially results in growth. And that's what you want. But going beyond that, by having those user behaviors really clear for the product team, then you're able to extend that knowledge over to product marketing, and product marketing is then able to extend it to the rest of the organization. So think of when teams do marketing, they might be talking about things that the product team aren't working on, or things that and that creates a dissonance between what is being developed versus what is being marketed. Or the marketing team is talking about really high level things that often come off a little bit buzzwordy, right? I think we're all familiar with that. Like with AI, everyone has AI, but nobody really understands what they're talking about or how it actually provides value. So by aligning the entire organization around these user behaviors, you're then able to create really specific and targeted messaging that's going to create an experience, from marketing to sales to the product itself. And you have a much tighter experience throughout that, again, is essentially going to create that value and then result in that growth.
I've always commented that I feel that product and marketing should be working hand in glove. Like the why comes from the product team who are deeply connected to the problem, and then the marketing team are the communicators that distill the why. I think there is a confusion over the broad term of marketing as a company. With marketing is out there talking about the company values, their messaging, more of a corporate positioning statement, and then there's product marketing and how that works with product. Is there anything further that you'd like to help explain to our listeners as to why that function works so closely and how it works together?
Yeah, so I'll give you the product marketing perspective, and I think Dave can give you the product perspective, but I've always said that product marketing should be seen as a function of product, not marketing. One of the reasons for that is because in the absence of a product marketer, it's the product manager that takes care of a lot of those things. So why is it that once a product marketer comes along, all of a sudden it's marketing and it's shifted out of product? That to me makes very little sense. The second thing is, in order for marketing to really be successful, you need to be talking about value, and you need to be talking about benefits, and you need to be talking about outcomes. And sometimes that is a little bit lost in translation. So there's a lot of teams that have this friction between product and marketing. Product is saying, marketing is selling things that we don't do, and marketing is saying, well, product's not talking to us. And that's where product marketing, really, really shines, isn't being able to take all these, technical things and translating them into messaging frameworks, into copywriting, into whatever it is that might be needed to appropriately then communicate that value.
Yeah, I think of it in two different ways. If I think of it with my exec member hat on, part of the exec co, one key reason why product marketing need to be super close to the product function, and in my opinion, ideally, join stand-ups regularly and be part of teams and then work with them closely. And that simply, it reduces the time to market. It means there's no handover. As we're building the product, we're working out how to talk about it. As we're talking to customers to learn about their problem, marketing are also learning, if they're involved in some of that discovery research with product, marketing are also learning about how the customer speaks about it. They're looking at the same interviews with different optics and learning something different, which means as the product's being developed and evolving and iterating, when we get to that point of, hey, we need to launch this thing and tell the world about it, product marketing already fully understand what it's about and what the message is. And we don't have this delayed handover of, now it's built, now it goes to the marketing team, and we have to wait 6 months for them to do what we've just done all over again, but with their optics to then be able to do their job. Instead, we do it together, one work stream. So that's much more efficient and competitive. It means we can get to market faster, and being moving fast is, for many SaaS organizations, is really important to be able to create a differentiation and keep that differentiation for longer. With a different hat on, with the pure product hat on, and thinking about how does it help a product manager working with a product marketer, they get a different viewpoint. They hear a different way of articulating a problem. They hear a different way of articulating a solution. And having a different viewpoint on the same research and having somebody communicate the problem that you understand, you're learning about and understanding in a different way, can often be illuminating to really take things forwards and then help underpick and communicate to the rest of the product squad, the cross-functional squad of engineers and designers, help them understand the problem better as well. Not all, some product managers are really good at the comm side, others are really good at the research side, but not so good at communicating their findings. You never have that problem when product marketing are working with the product manager. So you end up being a real powerhouse.
I just want to pause here for a minute to tell you about our sponsor, Callaghan Innovation, Aotearoa New Zealand's innovation agency. This agency empowers innovators, helping you transform your world-bettering ideas into commercially successful ventures. What you may or may not know is that Callaghan have a fantastic suite of products called Upskill. These products will help you identify the innovation, R&D and commercialization skills you need to amplify and elevate your ideas, and then train you to put them into practice. So go check it out by heading over to their website, callahaninnovation.govt.nz/upskill. Whilst we're talking about functions within a startup, I know that when a startup first is at the point of genesis with the founders. There's often a technical founder in there because someone has to make the prototype, right? So often the product function comes in later or not at all because there's a misunderstanding. Andrew's smiling. Because there's a misunderstanding about what technology is and what product is. I have a very clear position or viewpoint on this, but I'm really keen to understand, to get your viewpoint on what the difference is. I call them the pillars of a company. I go technology, product, customer, and people. Can you explain the differences between technology and product?
It depends on the stage of the journey. Exactly, the roles are going to change, but product's core role is to understand the problem, the customer problem, be able to marry that to the strategy, marry that to where customer value can be created. So by understanding users have these behaviors that if they were different and modified, if they could do this thing quicker, faster, easier, simpler, better, they would be happier. They would create value for the company they work for. I work mainly in B2B, so apologies for the B2B bias. But if the users are doing whatever activity they are, bigger, faster, better, easier, cheaper, there's value created for the company they work for. And then if we create value for that company, logically, and that's where the like comes in, we end up creating value for our business and hit our business goals, whatever our business model is to do that. I think, that's the value chain in the book. The product in the book we talk about the business value, how it maps to customer value, and how it maps to user behavior. So product's job is to understand those user behaviors in detail and at a high level, and really understand the problem and understand how it creates value and aligns to how it will generate growth for the business. And therefore being able to prioritize which problems are both valuable to the business and to the customer. When we understand that, we can be focusing our cross-functional teams, our engineers, our technology, engineers and design. And it was interesting you didn't mention design there, because design can sit in, you could call them in technology sometimes, or you could call them in product. I think they're probably in the middle. But if we think about engineering and designers, if product can provide clarity to the problem and prioritize which problems we're going to solve, those two functions are then the ideal people with the most knowledge to come up with the best solution. And product's job then becomes to validate that solution solves the problem.
That's a really comprehensive answer. The reason I was laughing is because I just consulted with a company that had this exact problem. Is they were very technology led and they didn't have a single product person. And they kept wondering, why it was that they weren't closing deals. And, in their mind, all they needed to do, and this is a direct quote of the CEO, is, we just need to reach feature parity with our competitors. That was their strategy. There was no other strategy. There literally was no product strategy written down. It was just, we need to reach feature parity. And I'm just like, that's still not going to give you the results that you want, right? Everything down to the UI was just a bunch of features thrown together and slapped together, hoping that something would come out of it. So it was really interesting to see that, happen and devolve, I think is the right word. And they also really struggled, and they're like, we don't know why we don't have product market fit. And I'm like, well, the first reason is because you don't really have a strategy. You're just building a bunch of features. There's no product here. It's just a bunch of features thrown together. And the second was they had, leadership had a certain idea of what those user behaviors were that they were trying to change. Middle management had a separate idea of what they thought they wanted to change, and then customers had an entirely different perception about what those value points were for them. So it was unsurprising, really, that on an empathy scale of 5, the result was 2.8. So customers weren't understanding the value. They didn't see the same set of value points, and they didn't find that there was a level of empathy even in how things were being communicated to them. So get yourself a product team.
Yeah, what's really interesting there, Andrea, and you mentioned it, Shona, you mentioned, the genesis is with the founders, and that's maybe a tech founder in some cases. And they might struggle to hire a product manager, or might never decide to go down the route of that function. And that's something we talk about quite a bit in the book, not directly, but indirectly. The product VCP, the tool we talk about, the product value creation plan to help you articulate the strategy in an actionable way. That's a really powerful tool that I've worked with founders with quite a lot to help them create the right guardrails and guidance so they can bring in a product leader who can now execute it. It's set so they've got trust, they're going in the right direction, but with the right level of granularity that it's not micromanagement and empowering that new product function. Building your first product function, that first product hire is really hard.
So it's not about cookie cutting. It is about giving a framework and guidance. And, if you're missing this, I would imagine people are listening right now, and there's probably some penny dropping as to why things aren't quite taking off. They're not getting, I often people come to me saying, I've got a sales problem or I've got a marketing problem. And when you dig into it, you go, actually, no, you've got a problem. And that comes down to product.
It's usually a leadership problem.
That too.
Yeah, it is.
but it can be just because there's just a gap in their knowledge, right? We all can't know everything. And so I'm imagining some people are probably listening now going, okay, I think I'm missing something. What should I be seeing in my business to know that if I'm going to hire these people and we're going to go down this road of actively installing the product function in our business to not only achieve product market fit, but to sustain it, what are kind of like the processes and activities that they should be seeing within the business on a daily basis or weekly basis? What's the processes that they should then start seeing from someone who actually knows what they're doing?
It's important to step back slightly from the day-to-day before you jump straight to day-to-day and be sure that you've set those people up for success, which is where the product VCP comes into place. Creating trust, you've got to empower your teams, and to create that requires a level of trust with the right level of transparency. And what we see a lot is that instead of using something like the product VCP, we end up with the commitment between that new product leader and the founder or indeed an executive team becomes a product roadmap. And unfortunately, these roadmaps they probably shouldn't be called roadmaps. They're normally actually delivery plans full of just features and dates of when we're going to build what. That's immediately a problem. If we've got the right commitment, so we're committing where we're creating space for people to experiment and learn to find the best solution to the problem and really understand the problem correctly, then the day-to-day things I should be seeing product managers talking about the phrases and evidence they've captured from talking to customers all the time. They should be spending at least a third. And Marty Kagan says, I think 60% in one of his books. But in practice, I see, at least in Europe, a lot of teams, when they're doing it well, at least a third of the time, the product people are talking to customers or the market, and they're capturing that and sharing those learnings. And the things we thought we were going to build should be changing. If we're not killing features, for example, that's a really good stress test. Talking to the founder, I coach founders a lot and CPOs, chief product officers and founders. I coach them with leadership and product management. And a really great stress test to find out whether you were doing any product management at all, or if you're just doing delivery management, is how many features did you kill in the last year? Really, how many features did you kill in the last month? If you're in a situation where every single thing you decide to invest in, you've finished, you built it, and you did it end to end and launched it because you're obsessed with just shipping everything, and it's still in the product, creating bloat and tech debt and expense and customer confusion, the chance that all of those things were valuable things to help somebody, if you really have picked all the right things with no research and discovery and no iteration, then you should be picking my lottery numbers for me, thanks, because you've got the miser's touch. You should be killing things. There should be ideas you started and went, that did not work. Let's get rid of it quick. Let's abort, move on to the next thing. So if you aren't seeing that, everything else isn't working.
I love you raising tech debt. That's just so important for everybody to understand that if you have a bunch of features and only 5% are being used, the rest is just your engineers maintaining it, right? And then you've got technical debt. Within 10 years, you've got technical debt on only 5% of features that people and your customers actually only care about. So thank you for raising that. Andrea, was there anything else that you would want to see happening?
Honestly, that was a very comprehensive answer. I don't know that I would add anything else. I would just say one thing is don't expect to hire a product person and have all the problems suddenly be solved. Like, oh, magic, done. And that's really important to keep in mind is in order for the product leader to be successful, they need to be empowered, and they need to be empowered to work with outcomes, run product discovery, and, do all the things that they need to do, focus on those behaviors. Because without empowerment, all you have is someone that's going to get blamed at the end of the day.
So talking about empowering and trust with the product team, because it is a mystical craft from what I can see others within the tech team, within the startups will see that, quite often it's seen as an even playing field of opinions, that everyone in the business can have an opinion because we've all got an opinion and we're entitled to an opinion. What are some of the frustrating things or mistakes that you're seeing within companies and product teams that, just to help people understand how, to avoid some of these mistakes and frustrations?
One of the things I see a lot is what you just said, actually, Shona. It's an even playing field. We've all got an opinion. We're all entitled to it. That is not an empowered team. An empowered team is one that is empowered to go and get the evidence to make decisions that go against opinion. So my opinion in a leadership role might be we should build this widget, but they go and find the evidence that nobody wants that widget, then they should be able to build something completely different. They should be able to say no to that. Where in most companies, unfortunately, we still have a culture where leadership isn't servant leadership, which is what like coaching. Instead, we have this old-fashioned draconian culture where I'm the guy with the founder title. I think we should build X. You go build it. I employ you to build it. If you hire teams, if you hire engineers and think you've hired builders, then you're wasting 50% of the spend you're investing on those engineers. What you've hired is problem solvers who are super creative, but instead of solving problems with wireframes and pixels or designing ergonomic industrial design stuff, they solve problems in code. So you've got to make sure you're allowing those people to solve the problem instead of doing their job for them. And that's often the biggest problem. You want to empower a team, is get out of the way and give the team the space to do their job instead of trying to do it for them.
I've also seen the opposite of that, which is a mix of analysis paralysis with psychological safety, where teams are so afraid to make a decision, they'll A/B test everything, or, discovery will take months and months and months and months because they don't feel like they have, the right numbers or whatever it might be. That is a lack of empowerment as well. And there's, severe lack of psychological safety there, because I've seen so many product managers saying, oh, we have to A/B test this, we have to A/B test that. Like, but you have the evidence already. What do you need to A/B test? Just do it. You're making a bet. If it doesn't work, what did you learn from it, right? Where did the evidence go wrong? But you don't need to A/B test you don't have to have this like analysis paralysis. And that, goes back to lack of empowerment, lack of trust, lack of psychological safety. So yes, you need to give, as Dave said, your teams the space to be able to make those decisions and feel empowered when they make those decisions.
Where do you think the psychological safety, lacking it, where do you think that comes from?
Leadership.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's sort of the corporate answer would be culture. And
yeah,
Andrea, I agree. It's leadership. It's a mixture of leadership. It can be hiring the wrong people, but then that's up to leadership again.
If you hire the wrong person and they have a toxic personality and you allow them to stay, then that's on you.
Yeah, that's where I was going.
Yeah.
Those toxic folks make a big difference. And, you've got to as a leader, you've got to be able to hire people you trust can do the job. I hire a plumber to come and do some plumbing in my house, and I have no idea how to do plumbing. I trust they're going to do it properly. I'm not looking over their shoulder saying, are you sure you've done that up tight enough? Maybe you should use the brass, not a plastic, whatever it is. But, I hire them and trust they can do the job. I hire a professional to do it. And we're not very good at hiring professionals to do jobs in the product space. We like to do it for them.
Yeah, I just recently spoke to a founder that said, sometimes brilliant jerks are necessary, and I'm like, no, they're not. They're really not. And he's really struggling with rebuilding his team because a lot of people left because of this one personality. And I was like, well, at some point you're going to have to make the decision: is this one quote unquote brilliant jerk, as he put it, worth keeping around if you have all this other talent that is leaving because they don't feel safe around this person? Hopefully they as a founder will feel empowered enough to take that decision, but they currently do not. So I think there is something to be said about founders getting coaching as well and getting support, and feeling empowered and having to make those difficult decisions as well.
I mean, one thing founders who I coach regularly say to me is, how can I trust them? How do I know if they get it wrong, it's too big a mistake, I can't afford it? And that's where we come back to being able to execute strategy well. That's where the tools like the product VCP really come in to help create the right level of guardrails, the right level of transparency, the right level of information. So as the founder, I can see I know they're working within these guardrails. I know they're going in the right direction. I've got the right level of transparency to tell me things are on track. And very importantly, the right level of transparency to tell me when I need to get in there and support. And support, so frequently I see a product manager or a product team unhappy because the founders told them to go build XYZ. And they're like, why did they do that to me? And the founders, they're going, I don't know why they're unhappy. They were stuck and I've helped unstick them. I came and helped them. And that's just about coaching the founder on how to support and challenge a team differently. Often giving the solution and suggesting, being the founder, you forget the power of your words as a founder and your actions and how they have a huge ripple effect in the organization. If you're seen to be coming in and solving the problem for everyone, being the hero, that's not helpful. That's not the ripple effect we want. We want the ripple effect where you came in and asked the really good question that helped me realize what the answer was. That's a much more interesting thing, where you're the founder and the teams are like, I don't enjoy the meeting with him. It's hard, it's challenging, but wow, they asked me a really good question and it got to the nub of the problem and it helped unlock what we were doing. It's coaching somebody to be more of a servant leader, and then we help go and get empowered teams.
I would even suggest that some businesses don't have a toxic culture at all. So the psychological, safety isn't there, not because it's a, toxic culture, but sometimes it's actually there because the founder or the leaders are giving the answers. So when the team come and say, we've got a problem, they're like, I'm waiting for the answer. I don't feel safe to give an answer because I'm probably wrong, but my CEO always has the answer and they're right. And so it is about that coaching of saying, ask them questions instead of giving answers all the time. As I'm listening to you, I was coming back to the premise of your book and the why of we're here to help them as they rapidly grow, reduce waste. And you raised, Dave, that comment about, the founder being concerned, what if they get it wrong and we have a lot of waste? All I can hear in that toxic culture that doesn't give framework is waste. That's actually where the waste is, not we release something and find out if it works or not. Andrea, you've said it's easy to fall into the trap of building for commercial potential instead of customer value. What do you mean by that?
I did, in fact, write that line. And I remember writing it, and I remember discussing it with Dave as well, because we had a whole conversation. Remember, we actually had a Miro session around that. So it's interesting that you picked up on it, because it was a very powerful line. And what we mean by that, when that was written, is essentially what's been described by, Melissa Perry when she says the build trap, right? Building things just to build them, just to satisfy that one commercial deal that you think is going to change everything. And I've seen that so many times. And I think I mentioned it earlier when I was talking about this company who all they wanted to do was, reach feature parity, and all of a sudden everything's going to change. That is just building for what they feel is commercial value, just adding things because, that one customer said that they will close the deal if we build this thing for them. That is not building a product. That's just putting a bunch of features together and hoping that some customers might find value in them. So building for customer value really means being able to build these repeatable user behaviors that over time, result in growth loops, which is very different than building for that sole customer.
And Dave, you've then said so many B2B tech companies weaken their product market fit by accident. And I thought that was super interesting. Can you expand upon that?
Yeah, it's very linked to what Andrea said, actually, very, very closely. Let's take that example, Andrea, and explore it a little further. You've taken on some funding, you've hired a bunch of marketing people and more salespeople, and they're out there in the market doing what they do, what they're incentivized to do, which is go talk to people and sell stuff and so they can make their commission. And they'll cast the net wide. They definitely will go broader than your ICP, your ideal customer profile, assuming you've even identified one at this stage. And that will result in those requests that Andrea just mentioned. Now, some of those requests are one-offs for one customer and turning you into an agency. Others of them are real requests, real underserved needs of that market segment. But like we talked at the beginning, we'll go back to the retail example. If I'm in retail and currently I've got good traction in coffee shops, let's pretend we're a MarTech business and some sort of, email marketing system for retailers. If I'm selling really well for coffee shops and I have all the features for their underserved needs, and my salespeople suddenly come in tomorrow and if we close this, give me this feature, I can have this, we can bring in this customer, look at all the money, and it turns out they're a grocery store. And then tomorrow somebody comes in and says, hey, we can make all this money if we build this feature, and it's a furniture store, which have a completely different marketing strategy and need different tools to a grocery store or a retail store. Then without knowing it, we're like taking pot shots at different parts of the market, even if they are things that other people in that niche, in that segment need. We're just taking pot shots. So when we look at it back at this effort of spending, however many million over the year doing this, and we look back, have we strengthened our product market fit across this new wider market we've decided to go after, or by mistake gone after? And often the answer is no, we haven't. We've just slightly improved it here and there, rather than we're going after grocery stores as well as coffee shops now. And all of our effort, all of those shots go after making the product better for coffee shops. So it means we without really knowing it, we accidentally, normally by chasing the money, chasing the opportunities, and being tactical and forgetting what our strategy was. And most importantly, making the tactical decision as a priority without being able to have a capability to evaluate the opportunity we're letting go of by not following our strategy. And that's where the product VCP that we talked about a few times comes back in. It's a tool that will help those decisions. There's nothing wrong with going after the opportunity. It might be not a great product decision, but it might come with a heap of money and we need it for cash flow. There's lots of other reasons in the business why we might make those decisions, but knowing we're making it on purpose and knowing what we're letting go of. If we do this, we're not going to be able to follow this strategic initiative we said we would, which will mean next year is going to be completely different and our growth next year will change. Making those calls on purpose, that's what's so important. And so frequently the pressure, especially when you're VC backed, to keep those deals coming in and not miss the targets, will force founders and leadership teams to go astray.
I have heard of that, especially the pressure of trying to hit your targets and going for the next round, right? You're just chasing the money instead of being clear on your strategy. I bought a copy of your book and it's brilliant and it's wonderful work. And as a product person myself, I'm just so grateful that you've taken the time to put these practices and ideas into a framework and something that people can use. Where can people get a copy, and how's it all going for you?
People can get a copy on Amazon right now. So it's available on Kindle and hard copy. And we are also looking at other distribution. But hold on on that one. We're looking into it, see how we can make Apple Books happen at least.
We're waiting for approval on Audible, so be on Audible soon as well for those people that prefer to listen.
Well, congratulations to you both on this remarkable achievement. And I want to thank you for your time to spend with us and our guests. And it's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
I'm Hussein Al-Bedri, producer of These Three Things. This part of the podcast is called The Three Learned Things. Shona and I wanted to briefly reflect on the 3 key insights we got from today's episode, which is brought to you in association with Callahan Innovations Upskill Products. These products are designed to help startups uncover and acquire the skills they need to succeed. So Shona, that was a really interesting conversation with Dave and Andrea. What was the first insight that you got out of that conversation?
So I really liked Dave's comment of a really great stress test for you as a business, not just as product managers, is how many features have you actually killed? And I just thought that was brilliant because so many companies have a vision of what product looks like and what they want to deliver for the customer, and they end up just checkboxing what they're going to deliver. And the very, very sad part about this, and I've seen it so many times, so much work and energy goes into delivering a checkbox of features and they don't get used. Like you'll go back on your product data and go, why is only 5% of my features being used? Yet I've spent probably as a business $4 million on building these features. So it's really important to actually be going through and understanding the value of every feature you're going to deliver. And if you can't find that value and if you can't validate that value, like kill it. And I just loved the very clear message on that. So that was brilliant.
Yeah, that's really nice. I read something the other day that talked about a new acronym called JOMO, which is the joy of missing out, which is the opposite of the fear of missing out. And I think there's a huge psychological element with all of this where people hold on to ideas and they hold on to features and, maybe they need to look at what joy they get out of letting go of those features as well.
Absolutely. And so for you, what did you take away from this?
I mean, their whole thesis was around this concept of a value creation plan, which is how do you align your organization around user behaviors and understanding user behaviors? And one of the things that I heard from them is, being able to spend a lot of time, I think they said a third of the time, product teams should be talking to the market constantly. And I've observed a lot of product teams get into this ritual where they do pieces of research and that's their only interaction with the market. I just think that is a habit that every product team should be building, is this constant dialogue with their customers, because it is a changing market and things do change and move on. And that's a conversation that's really important, or a ritual that's really important to embed into your product teams as well.
That's right. And sometimes you see that the salespeople in the team believe it's their job to get that information, but without their understanding of what the product practice is, they're missing some of the nuances of what they're actually trying to learn. And so it is important to say, I need to be in those conversations. And for the salespeople who hold those relationships to continuously invite the product team in, because without it, let's talk about the third point that I picked up on, was that whole concept of accidentally losing product market fit. And I have seen this, and it's devastating. It can be a 10 or 20-year-old company. They absolutely had product market fit, or else how else did they survive and thrive? And then all of a sudden they start losing massive customers. They lose massive market share. And it is all because, if you look back on it, the world changed, the world moved on, their customers moved on, and the customers had a concept of who you are as a business, but they don't believe you specialize in this new area of the world anymore. And of course you do, but you haven't really stayed closely aligned to their problems they're trying to solve and the value that you create for them. So that's a really important point.
Yeah, that's a huge risk. And they talked a little bit about, this idea of analysis paralysis, that sometimes teams can be afraid of making decisions and, kind of overdoing the analysis of it. But I do think it is an absolutely vital point for them to make sure that product market fit is something they are continuously testing the market for.
Can you do me a favor? If you like this episode, can you hit the subscribe button? It really makes a huge difference to us, and it means that we can continue to evolve, grow, and bring more insights from a larger variety of guests. Thank you for listening to These Three Things. Our podcast is fueled by our passion and admiration for startups and the courageous people who create them. A huge thanks to our wonderful listeners and guests, my producer Hussein Al-Badri, our sound and visual crew, Elisa Grishkova and Carl Butler, and our sponsor, Callahan Innovation, who are just as committed and passionate about the ecosystem as we are. Tune in next week for another episode of These Three Things.